I have been so excited to have you on.
I am pumped to be here. We've been waiting for this moment for a long time. I feel like it's been out there and now we're here. So it feels good to be here.
I met you through my sister Chris, obviously, but I've been following what you've been doing for years. And you're such a badass. I can't wait to talk about all the things outdoors, about dog training, and you have Bacon here.
I do. Mr. Bacon the Bulldog. He had to come with because you're a big dog lover. Obviously, you have Fozzie the Newfie, and we just went for a little walk outside so the dogs could meet each other. But I'm thrilled to be here. I adore your sister. I adore you. I adore your family. So it's a pleasure to sit down with you and just chat.
Well, thank you. I don't think there's a family that is unfamiliar with the last name Schara in Minnesota. So your dad, Ron Schara, created Minnesota Bound. I want to say it was like mid-90s, probably. I remember growing up with it and it being on the TV. So
yes, it started in 1994.
Okay.
Before that, my dad wrote for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. So he was the outdoor writer, and he has a journalism degree and a wildlife biology degree. So he took those two things and was writing for the newspaper and realized that people were reading newspapers less and they were watching TV more. So he transferred his joy of the outdoors into television. So really writing is his passion. And then it just translated onto the TV camera. So here we are 32 years later. And the show is still running.
94 was 32 years ago. That's scary to think about.
I know.
I know. I'm the person who still thinks 90s was 10 years ago.
Same.
So,
I do too. It feels like it was just yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes, the show has been running that long. And kind of a fun fact about that is the only other TV shows in like real television history are Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune. I think Oprah had a really long run, obviously, and then here we are, this little outdoor show here in Minnesota, and we're still on air. So,
wow.
But one of those reasons why is that the stories just keep coming. I mean, Minnesotans really adore the outdoors, and they're passionate about conservation and anything outdoor related. You know, hiking, canoeing, state parks, birds, all sorts of stuff. So the stories are just there, and we tell other people's stories, just like you do on this podcast. It's about storytelling, and all of us are connected through storytelling. And both my dad and I share this when we do public speaking, is that storytelling is really in your DNA. And if you think about cavemen and women would sit in a cave around a fire and they'd tell their stories on a wall. They'd write them.
Yeah.
And it's in your genetic DNA to tell a story, and that's really what connects us all together. So.
And there's never a shortage of stories ever.
There's not.
Yeah.
The travel does that for you. The outdoors makes you a storyteller. Also sports. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, you do so much out in the outdoors that I just think, especially for women, is so cool to show women how much we can engage with it. That I don't think is the norm, at least. And I know you hunt, you fish, you're an incredible trap shooter, which...
I try. I wouldn't say incredible, but well, I give it my best.
From what I've seen, because I've tried it before. And I remember we were at we have a duck hunting camp, and it was the first time I'd ever really tried to shoot the clay pigeon. And I brought it up, and as soon as I shot it, it went down like that. And my brother-in-law was like, I think we're done with this. Maybe get you some more practice elsewhere first. So yeah, it's a lot harder than it looks, I think.
There is a learning curve with shooting sports and sporting clays and trap and shooting a shotgun. The one thing that where I think women, if they want to learn, that they don't necessarily understand, and men don't necessarily all understand this either, is that equipment matters. So just like golf, if you were to take up golf, you wouldn't have your dad or your grandfather pass you their golf club and try to learn how to golf.
Right.
The same goes for shooting sports for women, based upon your height. If you're an average height female, like 5'6", 5'4", what have you, you do need equipment that fits you appropriately. So a lot of standard size shotguns are made for men that are taller, and so the equipment's not fitting. So always, you can always blame the equipment first. You tell your family.
I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah, tell them it's that. And then there is a just like golf, you learn how to swing the golf club. It's very similar in how you align the shotgun to your body and your face alignment, and then of course the focus that you have. That obviously I can't focus too much with my dog Bacon climbing on my lap. I'm going to put him down here.
Yeah, you can cruise around.
But I guarantee you that you could easily learn how to be successful at shooting sporting clays. And I host a women's shooting clinic in June. It's called Feathers and Tweed. And the reason I did that is because there's many, many women just like yourself that want to learn how to shoot a shotgun. There's something very empowering about just being able to shoot a clay pigeon.
For sure.
And the joy that explodes from ladies when they do have success shooting one is fills my heart.
Yeah.
And so I started the clinic, and we have instructors that come in from all over the country. And my sister Simone helps with the clinic, and myself, and we just have a bunch of ladies that get together, and we show them that it can be done. And we have a pheasant lunch, and there's a little bit of shopping, so it's been fun.
Oh yeah, I want to do that.
Yes,
for sure.
please. It's in June.
Okay.
Coming up
Is that
in June.
what Chris did with you last year, or that was maybe that was the game?
She went to Game Fair. So
okay.
Game Fair is in August, and I host a women's shooting clinic there, which is free. If you come to Game Fair, that's free. Same thing. The one in June is at Horse and Hunt Club, and that's more of a half-day program where you can learn. But anybody can learn how to shoot a shotgun. In fact, the state of Minnesota, I believe, has almost like 53,000 students participating in the high school trap shooting teams now. It's one of the most
amazing.
popular high school sports in our state.
Wow.
Isn't that incredible?
Well, there's so many more. And now I learned that you can get a scholarship for fishing, which they didn't have before. So I know of some kiddos who've had that.
Yes.
It's like they're really putting the emphasis back on just what people have grown up doing all the time. I think it's so cool.
Well, it's incredible. I mean, the amount that kids today really need the outdoors is more important than ever, of course, because of technology and what I call the microwave society. Everything's instant gratification these days, and the outdoors teaches you that's not the way life goes. And what's really unique about the high school fishing teams is all of the boats, the coaches, the adults that are helping, that's all volunteer. And you have hundreds of kids in high school fishing leagues now, and you have all those people who are willing to donate their time, their boat, the gas money to move the boat around, all the things to make sure these kids have those experiences. And I think that's so incredible.
That's so cool. One of the things I'm curious about is when you got into, like, how old were you when you shot your first gun? Like, did you get, what do you call it, the safety?
Firearm safety certificate?
Yeah.
Yes, that was, I was 13 when I did that. That was like mandatory in our family.
Yeah.
For years, my sister and I grew up following my dad in the pheasant field, and he really wanted to make sure we understood the circle of life, that something dies to feed another soul, and that happens on our planet everywhere, including plants, right? Things are eaten in order to create life for another. And we needed to understand that as young girls. And so even to the point of like helping clean pheasants at a very young age. And if you've ever had an opportunity to clean a pheasant, you understand there's a really strong scent with pheasant, cleaning a pheasant, which is not necessarily desirable.
I haven't cleaned it myself, but I've been around the pheasant cleaning.
Yes. And so, we were just as kids really had a great understanding of where our food comes from, and my mom cooked a lot of wild game, and we ate a lot of different species of game in our family, including
I was going to say, what's the weirdest thing you've eaten, or I should say most unique?
Most unique, yes. I would say the most unique is my dad had us eat squirrel. And he said it was chicken, because my sister and I for sure would have freaked out had we known it was squirrel, and we ate the whole thing, and actually tasted like chicken.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, but I knew it kind of wasn't chicken because the ribs were a little small. There's a bunch of ribs there, and I was like, I don't remember chicken, but I ate it anyway. And after we were done, he said that was squirrel, and we both got a little quiet, and we were like, all right,
squirrel's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And recently I just had pigeon for the first time. That was really good. I was not expecting that to taste as good as it did. I had a chance to do some wild game cooking over a open flame wood fire with Andrew Zimmern, and he made pigeon. And of course, pigeon is very popular in Argentina and in the UK. They eat it a lot. And here, for some reason in the US, we're like, it's a street, it's a street bird or whatever.
Right.
And Andrew shared with me, apparently they're very particular about what they eat, even if they are a city bird. Though I don't he said there are places you can hunt pigeons with rocks in cities. I don't know it. I've not looked this up. I don't know if that's true. Anyway, but how he made pigeon that day was really, really good. So that was also really neat.
Interesting. Okay, so it wasn't called pigeon, but it was on the Barler menu, and I had asked at the time, like, do you have something gluten-free? And it was basically pigeon. And I remember when they brought it out, it was like,
They call it squab.
yes.
Yes.
And you could tell it was a pigeon. Like it had, I don't know if the feet were still on something. I was like, oh gosh. And I couldn't get past the presentation of it. And I don't think it was probably prepared, like enough to hide whatever the physicality of it. I was like, oh, I can't do this. So I didn't enjoy it. But now I'm kind of curious to try it again.
I bet you'd enjoy it this time.
Yeah.
I think, part of the I guess gifts given to you when you do go hunting is that going to the grocery store, everything's so clean. Everything's wrapped in saran wrap, which probably is not that good for you, but it is.
Right.
And it is everything is cleaned and packaged and washed, and you get very desensitized on where your food comes from. And so when you're out hunting, or even if you're foraging for mushrooms, I mean, there's insects all over the mushrooms all the time.
Sure.
You have to like wipe those, soak them and dry them out, make sure there's not bugs in there, or maybe you want to eat the bugs. But that is like a helpful skill to have, is to not have to be desensitized, especially for kids too, on what food looks like, how it's prepared. My parents, when we were younger, would take us to some trips that were very remote, where we would have to heat up our shower water in a solar bag, and all of our food was cooked on a rock, and it was in the middle of nowhere. Like there's nothing around you, and the fish that was served was cooked on a rock, and everything was still there. The head, the eyeballs, the tail, the skin. Of course, the inside was clean, but as kids, we're like,
right.
like, there's eyeballs still on the fish, and we ate it. That's the only thing that's what dinner is. There's nothing else to eat, so you become like, okay, it's not that big of a deal, and the food's cooked and it's good, and I feel blessed to have had the childhood that I did have. That's given me so many of those unique experiences.
It's so rare nowadays. I mean, we've gone so far away from the farming families, and how so many people lived years ago, and we're so used to our creature comforts. And what a gift to be able to give that for you and your sister. It's just the two of you, right?
It is. My sister Simone and I, and you had asked me, when did I start shooting? I didn't really circle back to that. I started later. She got into hunting earlier than I did. And I was busy with, both of us rode horses growing up too. So I kind of started going down that path. She did some more bird hunting with my dad, and then I continued with horses. Then I went to college, and then I took a full-time job. So I really got into hunting after high school. It's really when I started to get into it, and I didn't really appreciate it. I appreciated it, like I wanted to learn, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I do, I would say, within the past 10 years. I've really become more of a invested hunter, and investing in putting food in my freezer, and really enjoying the process more, and appreciating the difficulties of it, appreciating the challenges of it, and of course the memories with your friends and stuff is always, and your family is so important.
What do you hunt? So pheasant?
A little bit of pheasant hunting. Okay. I went deer hunting in Hawaii for axis deer. I'm going to do that again coming up this January. I'm going to repeat that trip. Axis deer they are an invasive species in Hawaii, and so the hunting season is year-round there. And they were a gift, from my recollection. They were a gift to the island back in like 1865, and I believe it was from the Emperor of Hong Kong or something, gave them the gift of the axis deer for food. And they don't have a single predator or even a bird of prey that will eat a carcass on the island of Hawaii. So the deer have just exploded to the point of they now are decimating seabird nests and other plant life and all sorts of stuff. They do need to be, their population needs to be regulated. But they are very difficult to hunt because they're very spooky. So this is not where you go and sit in the deer stand like you would here in the Midwest per se. You have to stalk them. So it's a very primal experience.
Oh, that's
Sometimes you're on
cool.
your hands and knees. Sometimes you're crawling on your belly. And they catch one little scent of you and they're out of there. So it becomes a big challenge, but the meat is incredible. Best
Better than
tasting,
venison?
in my opinion.
Oh,
I
nice.
think
Okay.
it is one of the best tasting venison meats available. Probably even slightly better than elk, maybe.
I've tried elk
Elk is incredible.
before. Yes.
Yes.
It was the same kind of thing where we were tricked into eating it. It was at my friend's house growing up, and yeah, I liked it. I remember, and they told us afterwards it was elk. I was like, oh,
So
that's
good.
good.
Yes,
Yeah.
elk is delicious.
Yeah.
That trip is, it's on my bucket list. It is an expensive trip to do if you aren't a resident and or have private land to hunt on per se in Montana or New Mexico, Colorado. Definitely need a guide for that one, especially for someone with my level of knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's an investment, a big investment. So, and you're not
sure.
guaranteed. There's no guarantee you're coming home with put meat in your freezer either. So, you got to save your pennies for that one.
That's
But maybe
interesting.
someday.
So it's different from like if you go on like an African safari hunt and it seems as though you're kind of guaranteed to get a certain, depending on the hunt. But we actually have a South Africa trip that Gary bid on and won, and so in a few years, I guess. But from what we know, it's kind of like these are the different animals, and oh, hey, buddy.
You going to get a drink?
And it seems like it's more of a they're more readily available, almost like a game farm where you're going to get your kill. But maybe I'm mistaken.
Are you hunting there? Or are you doing a
I'm
photography
not.
safari?
Yeah, I'm not. I think he will be.
He will be. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure on.
Okay.
I mean, in my opinion, there's no guarantee on anything.
Right. Right.
Because these are wild animals.
Yeah.
Even if you sign up to do a bear watching tour in Alaska, there really is like not really a guarantee that you're necessarily going to see something.
Sure.
And then also, how accurate can you be in the moment? Because your goal as a hunter and a sportsman or woman is that you want to honor the animal as much as you can, which means that you are very accurate in your shooting, so you don't wound an animal per se. That's part of being sportsmanlike and part of the hunt. And when you get to the moment where you have an opportunity to harvest an animal, your adrenaline goes like
I'm
crazy.
sure.
And you have to learn how to regulate your breathing, and you have to learn how to, because your body starts shaking.
Sure.
And all of that is a practice, repetition, trained skill to really understand how to calm your breathing down in moments of really high adrenaline. So all of those things can come into play. Animals can move very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's never a guarantee, I always say, and
Yeah.
that's why they call it hunting instead of catching, I guess.
Yeah. That's probably had to have been helpful for you to be in front of the camera too, to just be in those situations where you have to slow down your breathing and if any kind of nerves or anything. And maybe you grew up more being in front of the camera. I'm not sure when that started, but
yeah, I am a big advocate of practicing.
yeah,
Especially if you're going to be archery hunting, to really take the time to practice so that when you are in those moments of high stress, that a lot of it becomes intuitive. Same with shooting sports. You want to practice your form and how you mount the gun to your face for sporting clays, for pheasant hunting. All those things become intuitive when you're under the moment of pressure. So it's interesting because I have a higher success rate with sporting clays where the target is necessarily. I have higher success rate in sporting clays versus pheasant hunting. Where sporting clays, the target's moving faster and it's much smaller. And it's coming from all different directions, sometimes, from behind you, all sorts of things, than I do with pheasant hunting. And the reason for that is I've had more practice sporting clays than I have pheasant hunting. And my sister is the opposite. She's an incredible pheasant hunter. And
oh, interesting.
she's a good sporting clay shooter, but it's almost we're flip-flopped on that. And I think because it's just the amount of practice that she's had versus me in the pheasant field. And there's something about, you have dogs out there roaming around. And I always am obviously very safe hunter. You want to make sure you have clear shots, and there's all these moving parts when you're pheasant hunting where I've had more misses in the pheasant field than I probably care to admit, but I still have fun and I don't care. And I share that because I want other people to know it's not about how many birds you're harvesting. It really is just about being in the moment and having a good time and having something maybe to take home in your freezer. But I always say take what you need and leave the rest. It's not about look at me, I'm able to shoot all these things. I mean, that's not really what hunting is about, or foraging or anything. It's really about take what you need and leave the rest.
Yeah. Yeah. And you, so you were talking about stocking your freezer and stuff. So do you have a lot of your own meat that you've killed and were able to?
I don't know, because I don't have a deep freeze. So in my garage, a lot of people have the big deep freezers. I don't. When I go hunting in Hawaii, if I'm successful, I will have a significant amount of excess deer meat. But I try to go through it fairly quickly. So when I've been turkey hunting, there's times where I don't even freeze the meat. I harvest it, clean it, and grill it that night. Because I always think when I try it at its freshest, it's actually really good.
Yeah, I bet.
I did that with salmon fishing, and we went salmon fishing on Lake Michigan. We drove home. I had it still just fresh from that morning on the cooler, and I cooked it that night. I love to do that when I can.
Yeah.
And so I try to use it right away. I don't. I think your limit on frozen game, people will have all different opinions about this, if you vacuum seal it or not or whatever, but I don't think you have that much time. I mean, you have to eat it for sure within a year.
Okay.
So, and that's another gift as being a hunter. You share a lot of it because if you're shooting an elk, that's like 600, 700 pounds of meat. I mean, it's going to take forever to go through that.
Right.
So you share, and that way when someone's out hunting and maybe they went caribou hunting, which also tastes incredible. I don't know if I'll ever have the chance to do that. Maybe they'll share some of that with me. I've had hunters share, unique, different species with me, which I've really loved to try. Some of those, antelope is good. I haven't had a chance to shoot antelope, so that was another one. So that's kind of part of the thing. It's like, you share with others.
Yeah. I think like with anything, when you get into something, whether it's the outdoor enthusiast or like holistic or whatever, you find a community that's so, it's like a little village where people just help each other out, and it's really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
For the whole world.
I know. I hope we gravitate more towards that, which I think we're going to in this new era we're getting into. So that's exciting.
Do.
Yeah.
I know. I'm really pumped about it. It's a wild time to be alive, to witness all of it. It's like really
best.
cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can't wait to see where things go in the future. There's so many changes, and it's exciting. Okay, so before we sat down, we walked the dogs, and I was so excited for you to come and just experience Fozzie, because he is a love, as you saw.
So cute.
And he also has like a lot of like puppy type behaviors.
Excitement.
Yes, excitement. Yeah, and so one of the things that has always been an issue is when we go on walks, he pulls and he has a very high pitched bark, which I can hear in the background. Hopefully it's not on the camera, but and he pulls and he wants to visit all the dogs. And because he's so big, a lot of the owners of other dogs might be hesitant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they kind of, most of my neighbors know, who Fozzie is, whatever, but they don't know how their dog's going to react. So yeah, it was so cool to walk around and just have you show me kind of what to do, and really how to leave a loose leash until he needs correction, and then to correct it back. But there's so many things that like us dog owners make like the biggest mistakes. And so I want to start with the first, and I think potentially most important piece to owning a dog is how you choose one.
Yes.
And I would love for you to speak to that. And also just to say, like, I know dogs, like this is a passion of yours. I'm not sure if you're doing anything professionally with it yet. Want to highly encourage you to, because you're wildly intelligent about all of this. But yeah, I don't know if this is more of a passion or what. But
it is. I just love dogs. And my sister and I grew up with a lot of hunting dogs, and there are multiples of hunting dogs. And when we were little, the dogs...
Raven.
And even before the ravens, there was many dogs, even before our first raven, that they lived outside, the hunting dogs. So that was it was a different philosophy years ago. And then actually as my dad got older, all the dogs lived inside. So it changed, but
Yeah.
originally all the dogs were outside, and we had to know, because they're high energy hunting dogs, and there was multiples, that being little in size, we needed to understand how to behave with the dogs so they weren't going to railroad us, like run us over in the yard, push us down. Also, our jobs when we were young were cleaning out kennels, shoveling dog poo, cleaning water buckets, refilling water buckets. Like all of that was my sister and I, that was our chore. So we were always out working with the dogs. And then growing up, I literally was doing agility before agility was a thing. I would set up obstacle courses in my backyard.
Oh, cool.
Because my parents limited us to 1 hour of TV a day, and it had to be a nature show or a science show. So we were outside literally all the time. Like they're like, don't come in until like dinner time. And so we were just always out doing stuff imaginary. So I would set up these obstacle courses, and I would run my dogs through these obstacle courses, so my dad really taught us how to be a confident leader around dogs. So this was just ingrained in us as we were little. And then I did get into doing some dog obedience showing when I was a little girl in 4-H. We ended up having, we convinced our dad to get a cockapoo, which is half cocker, half poodle, little dog for the house. And he was always like hunting dogs only, but finally we wore him out. And he agreed. And so I started doing a little bit of that. So, and just from my entire childhood, I memorized the dog encyclopedia. So I have this bizarre talent where I can name dog breeds if I see one on the street. And people are always like, oh my God, no one's ever known that dog breed. I'm like, well, when I was a child, because I, no TV. Yeah, I was like memorizing all these dog breeds and their behaviors and all the things I did. So I've just been obsessed with dogs since I was little. So I have a passion for dog training, and I love to see the connection happen between my friends and their dogs when they're having behavioral issues or dogs, jumping on people or, leash type of aggression or things like that. And understanding that you have to learn how to speak their language instead of expecting your dog to understand your English.
Yeah. Wow.
So back to your question on finding the correct dog breed to bring into your lifestyle or your family is to have a really great understanding of what the dog's needs are, not necessarily your needs. Because a great way to have a poor relationship with your dog is to, think that you're going to have a German Shorthair Pointer because you love the look of a German Shorthair Pointer, but you are really someone who just likes to walk your dog around the block maybe twice.
Right.
And that is one of the reasons why I have a French Bulldog and I don't have a lab like my dad did, or my sister has 2 labs. And I lived in the North Loop of Minneapolis for many years because I was doing my fashion career and then my part-time television career at that time. And I knew it would be a disservice to have a lab downtown. I couldn't run, I'm not a marathon runner. I couldn't run enough miles to give that dog the stimulation it needed. So I think that's number one. Number two, also understanding the many breeds have significant health stuff that can happen. So I would research that to really understand what you are signing up for. For instance, like a Doberman Pinscher, they have to have a Holter monitor on their heart every single year, a test done. And I'm guessing that can probably get pretty expensive because they have genetic heart issues. And that's part of owning a Doberman. French Bulldogs, if you are not very careful on who you decide to either purchase a Bulldog from, or even if you're adopting, to understand as much as you can some of the health things that a dog may have going on, they can be littered with health problems. So it's just important to understand what you're signing up for, and also the energy level of your house. Like if you have kids with high energy, because your dog will match the energy of the house a lot. And a lot of people think, oh, my dog's so hyper, and I don't understand why my dog's so hyper when you have littles and they like to run around and jump and do all this thing. Well, the dog's going to match that, like no problem. So you just have to be prepared to take on the training and exercise that is needed to fulfill the dog's physical needs and their mental needs as much as like your kids need. And
Right.
it's like adding a child to the family.
It is. They're
Yes.
our babies.
And they're so worth it. They're
Yeah.
so worth it. But just really having a great understanding of how is this dog going to work in our house. And if I am going to get a retriever or a pointer, am I going to do some retrieving or hunting with the dog? If I don't do hunting, am I going to, take the dog to the lake and throw a dummy or something to really fulfill that side of that dog? And that's where dog issues come up, where they're tearing up dog beds or your couch or drywall or all those things, is really a scream for I'm not being mentally stimulated.
Well, it's kind of, as you're talking about this, I'm like, okay, it's basically like how us humans, if we're not fulfilling our purpose in whatever we're doing, we feel a little like crazy.
Yes.
So same kind of thing. And yeah, there's so many things dogs get into when they're not being properly exercised. When I was still working and Fozzie was a puppy, it was probably a terrible time to get him because I was still teaching, so I was out of the house for most of the day. But we came home and he had bit a hole in our drywall.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I was like, well, yeah, he's bored. And we had a dog walker come over and stuff, but still, Newfoundlands need a lot of human,
Yes.
a lot of human interaction.
Like to swim.
Yeah, I know. Well, okay. So I was going to ask you about that too. So this is our second Newfoundland that has not swam yet. Loves to go in the water and wade, is afraid to swim. We'll stand out there. We even held peanut butter for our previous Newfoundland because he was obsessed with peanut butter.
Sure.
Wouldn't come out. So I'm
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. The first one did have kind of a traumatic situation in the water. It was actually, sorry, Chris, I'm gonna throw you under the bus. It was actually her retriever that bit him when he was a puppy in the water, and so I don't know if that. Yeah, and then
that could do it.
Yeah, and there was nothing that happened with Fozzie, but same thing where he likes to wade in the water, but he won't swim. As soon as he starts to feel his paws go up, he's like, nope.
He's not into it.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
And that can happen. There are some retrievers that just don't really have any interest in retrieving, and forcing. They do say with puppies and water, and the last thing you want to do is actually toss your dog in the water. That can be very traumatic. So, those little incidences when they're little can leave kind of a big imprint when they're adults with, even if you take a puppy into a dog park and there happens to be maybe a dog that has overexcitement and it bites your puppy, that can last for a long time, and you may never have a dog that's really dog friendly because of those little incidences. So you have to have a lot of patience and remember that they're little, and to just take things slow. But he may just want to just be up to his chest, and that's good for him.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's really into rescuing people, but you never know. He may try it. You could pretend, see if his instincts really kick in. You could maybe go out there and splash in the water and say, help. That. Oh, you did? Okay. He's like, no, you're on your own. Is there a flotation device around here? Just throw that, because I'm not going in. That's so funny.
He was not saving any lives.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, bless his heart. He sure is cute. That's for sure.
He is. He also gets allergic to lake water a little bit. He'll get hot spots and stuff. So maybe intuitively he just knows his body doesn't like it, but he'll sit in there. He won't swim. So,
interesting.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know on that one.
Okay. Okay. So obviously you went over some of the things about choosing a breed, and I love what you said and how it's not about what you want, it's about what the dog needs. And I think that's super important. I think Chris was telling me about how with Bacon's breed, I don't think they can be is it the extreme heat, or is it?
Yes. The French Bulldog has surpassed the Labrador Retriever on the AKC list of most popular dogs in the U.S., I believe. And when that happened, I have to say my heart broke a little bit. Not that I don't love the French Bulldog.
Yeah.
Is what happens when certain breeds get to the #1 list is when you have backyard breeders deciding to make a lot of money and without the care of dogs. And the French Bulldog is a very high maintenance, delicate breed, and they are worth their weight in gold in personality, They're funny dogs. They are not a dog that needs a significant amount of exercise. They love to be around their humans. On the flip side of that, they can have significant health issues, which I'd mentioned, but also they're very heat sensitive. So anything above 65 degrees they can overheat. And many times you may not think that your dog is overheating, but heat stroke can happen. I'm not saying this to be a fear monger at all, but heat stroke can happen a lot faster than what you think it can in dogs. And what happens is the heat, then the vet told me this, is that their organs actually get cooked on the inside.
Oh, gosh.
And then when your dog is in distress and you know it's heat stroke, it's almost too late. So like certain signs of dogs being too hot is when their tongue actually gets thick. It'll get thick and they get some foam on the edges of their back of their mouth. But that thickening of that tongue and they're panting pretty hard, that's, I think, the very beginning stages of your dog's too hot.
Wow.
And I like to just tell people that. I had a vet tell me that. I'm working at Game Fair, which is in August, outdoors. Everybody's allowed to bring their dog. We love it. There's like 5,000 dogs that come through the gates there. We have seen some issues of dogs getting too hot. So we're always reminding people, there's a lake, you can cool your dog down, but here are the signs of your dog getting a little too hot.
Yeah.
So I've kind of learned some of those signs just from being there over the years. But yes, Frenchies are heat sensitive. They also can have very delicate backs. In fact, there's a thing called IVDD where they slip their disc quite easily. So they cannot jump off and on couches. They cannot go up and down stairs. They can't jump on and off your bed. And people buy these dogs thinking, oh, I throw the ball down the couple stairs, the dog's running, jumping on off these couches. I have kids, it's chasing the kids. And you're not, and I don't want to say you're asking for it, but it is a high risk scenario you have going there. And you don't think it's going to happen to you until it's like that. And your dog slips a disc. And you're either going to have a dog that's paralyzed in its back legs and is incontinent, but your dog's brain is fine. So what are you going to do?
Oh, sad.
Or you have a very expensive surgery, and then the dog is on crate rest for 6 weeks, cannot leave that crate. So it's best to just. And he still plays. Like I'll throw, if I'm on a grass flat surface, he loves to chase a tennis ball. And though I also manage it, he'll chase a tennis ball. One thing with bulldogs, they don't have an off button. That's part of being a bulldog, right? They are the tenacity of a bulldog. They will not quit. So you have to be the advocate and say, you've probably had enough. We can't overdo it.
He'll just keep going.
Oh, they will. They just will keep going and going and going. But again, they're great dogs. And there's so many now in shelters and in rescues because of the influx of people realizing the health issues, the allergies, the surgeries, I can't do it, the breathing issue. And a lot of these people are breeding for color and or unique traits, which are not even standard traits. Like they're trying to get dogs that are shorter, more compact, and essentially you're just making their spines more delicate by doing that. So you have to be very discerning, when you decide who you're going to work with for your puppy. But also if you are willing to, some of these dogs in rescues, they may just have like mange from fleas and they need a special shampoo and they're fine and people are dumping them, or breeders are dumping their old dogs there. It's really sad. So I do recommend working with some rescues as well. I would love to do that at some point when I have the time to take care of two. I would do my service to help another dog. But being America's #1 dog now is not.
I didn't realize that. I mean, it's been labs for as long as I can remember.
I know.
We have one of those huge encyclopedia of all the dog breeds books too at my parents' house, and we've always loved looking through them. And some of them really surprise me because it'll say like their temperament, and so some, or how I'm trying to think of what some of the other categories are, but some of the ones that I felt like are very popular dogs in some families. I'm trying to even think of the breed, but it had different characteristics than I would have thought they did. And I think it's just, it goes back to the point that not every dog is right for every family. And, it was one of the reasons we chose Fozzies, because Newfoundlands are known to be gentle giants and really good with kids, and Nana from Peter Pan, the like Nana.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's a Newfoundland. It was based on a Newfoundland, and then it changed to like a Saint Bernard, I think, in the later like movies or whatever. But yeah, they talk about how they're like both our Newfoundlands used to lay by the cribs of our babies when they're little. So
Aren't they sweet? They're so intuitive.
yeah,
Dogs are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're so much smarter than I think we give them
For
credit
sure.
for. And they are energy readers. I mean, it's amazing when your dog, you could be 3 miles away from home and your dog's already waiting for you by your door. Like your dog knows
Yes.
you're coming home.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that.
How do they know
because
that?
I know. My neighbor, she was sitting on her couch and she was sitting with her dog, and she's got like the door here, the front door to outside. It has a little window on top and nothing the dog could see out of. And all of a sudden he like got up and ran to the front door and started barking. So she opened the front door, and Fozzie and I were just rounding the corner. And like there was nothing he could see out. He just like, and he because he loves Fozzie.
Yeah.
They're like buddies.
He already knew.
Yeah, and he's like this teeny tiny dog, and then so they're such a funny duo. But yeah, we were wondering, like, is that a real thing? Could he have sensed that we were walking by?
Well, their sense of smell, I think, is
I suppose.
like millions and millions times more better than, I just said that totally wrong, but it's better than humans by
Yes,
far.
yeah.
So they're able to certainly smell quite a far distance away. But I do feel that there's something that they just know. I mean, Bacon's been, with me, and Dan may be coming, just driving back from the airport, and he's on the phone with me, and he's like, okay, I just got in the car. I'll see you in a little bit. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I talk to Dan on speakerphone all the time, and he doesn't react. And he said that, and all of a sudden he zips to the door, and he's like waiting for him. I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. But I don't know. There is something, and they're so intuitive with so many other things. I mean, they can detect cancer in humans and things that we have no understanding.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me.
Knowing like a seizure is about to come on.
Yes.
Yeah, those kinds of things. It's so cool. I actually had, is this bothering? Just making sure my mic's okay. I actually had a reading with she's like an animal intuitive after our first Newfoundland Grizz passed. And she's like, okay, I've connected with them. And she's just kind of telling me, the regular things. He's happy or whatever. He looks over you guys. But then she said, okay, he keeps interrupting me, and he wants to deliver a message that he's with a poodle in heaven. And I was like, okay. She goes, did he have like a poodle friend, like a poodle down the street? And I'm like, no, we don't know any poodles. And she's like, okay, well, I don't know what this means, but he is adamant, he is with a poodle. That's exactly how she said it. And as soon as she said that, I busted out laughing, because my dad and I used to tease him that he had a poodle girlfriend all the time. Just he and I.
Wild.
I know. And like nobody else had ever heard that story. And the fact that she was like, oh, he's like interrupting me.
That is wild.
I know. Yeah, she's super talented. She actually works with equine services.
Okay.
So that she can tap into what's going on health-wise with horses, because, x-rays are wildly expensive. And so she can kind of pick up.
Interesting.
Yeah. But she says she communicates with them. And that, yeah. There were a few other things she said, but that just like had me laughing and crying all at once.
That's wild. Yeah. I love intuitive readings, and years and years ago with my first Bacon, he's my second Bacon of all things, she was doing the intuitive reading. She said something about Bacon wants you to know he's bored, and I was like, I'm like, really? Really? I'm like, the amount of things and activities I do for my dog. I mean, it is walks and throwing the ball. I mean, it is nonstop, the dog, all the time. I was like, that's hilarious. I was like, okay, noted. I know. He's like napping behind me in his dog bed, like the dog's bored. I was like, all right.
Yeah, it's time to get up.
I know, I guess. I guess I have more work to do.
I also wanted to ask about, what are a lot of myths that you feel like people have about dogs? Because one of the things I heard lately, and I don't know if it's true or not, but that a wagging tail doesn't necessarily mean friendliness. It could also mean they're on alert or they're ready to pounce or something. But
Yes.
Okay. So,
Very true.
Which is, I think that is one of the biggest myths, because everybody sees like a wagging tail, like, oh, you want to say hi.
Yeah, the dogs communicate quite frequently with their tail and their body language. So a lot of times when people are on walks, they always want to stop, not always, but they'll stop and like, oh, my dog wants to say hi, or this and this and that. And you can easily tell by a dog's body language on their temperament, I'll say. So the tail that is in the middle of the road, so it's not tucked under and it's not straight up, and it's doing a slow wag, is definitely a happy-go-lucky dog. I want to say hello. I mean no harm. I'm very much in a relaxed state. The dog with the tail that's going, it's more straight up and it's going very fast, where people think that is the dog's happy to see the other dog. That dog is in a aroused, excited state. And aroused meaning like, what is this? You don't know if those types can turn into a fight like that, because they're like, and they're almost too excited. So dogs that are in happy-go-lucky states don't get into leash fights. This hyper excitement can turn into a fight quickly, because the dog may be like, I want to be a little dominant, and another dog's going to say, not today, and then all of a sudden they're in some sort of mode together. So also I always tell people that fights don't break out when it's nose to tail, when they're introducing themselves that way. Fights can break out when it's face to face. And people think dogs just want to go say hi face to face, when really what they want is nose to tail. But you'll see this dance start to happen of who's going to go first on the nose to tail. So sometimes you have to be an advocate for your own dog. And if you see a stiff body coming up to you with that tail that's going straight up, and if it's a stiff straight tail, that's a very dominant position. And I personally would say, no, thank you. We're just going to keep walking. Yeah. Because you don't know. And a lot of times, what owners will do is they'll bring a dog that might be a little bit more on the dominant side or hyper excited side, and they're like, be nice, and just the energy of saying be nice all the time, you're almost like encouraging your dog to go for it. And instead, what you should do is make your dog sit down, calm down. Like we were working today, Fozzie likes to get excited. He is not dominant by any means. He's not overly, but he is just excited to play so much that for him, you have to just get him back to working for you until he gets into a calmer state, which happened in literally probably 5 minutes we were out there. Yeah. And then he was more in a relaxed state to say hello. But you have to know your dog's body language. They will give you a million signs before they ever go into full-blown brawl mode. Yeah. Their body will get stiff. They'll give a side eye. Their tail will get stiff. There's all sorts of signs.
Yes. I want to just emphasize this part. So these are the signs that the dog is like not. He doesn't want to say.
Levels of excitement. So when you're on a leash, and you may have a dog that they call it a leash aggression, which basically means your dog gets snarly when it sees other dogs, or sometimes off leash they're better. A lot of people find that, but on leash, a lot of that has to do with your energy too, of what you're tracting through the leash itself by this tight pull. But there are levels of excitement, and if you can give your dog the correction of no at a level 1 of excitement, you have a much greater chance of teaching the dog what you want them to do. Because many times people will just yank their dog away. Have you ever seen people where they're like, the dog's reacting, so they drag it away and they avoid everybody?
Yes.
So they don't.
I've been guilty of it. I know there's plenty of people in the neighborhood, same thing. Like,
because
we're trying to avoid. Yeah.
You become avoidant.
Yeah.
And what happens is anytime you drag a dog out of a situation, they don't have any idea why. They're not like, oh, my mom's dragging. They don't process it that way.
Yeah.
So we all need to allow ourselves and dogs the opportunity to fail.
Yeah.
So you have to let them see what they're doing. They're going to give you a first sign of the warning is if they're licking their lips, if they're doing a dead stare at a dog, and even a whimper or a whine. That's level 1, 2, 3 right there. Correct your dog at that level so they don't go into the explosive level. Even that direct stare, that's level 1. That is no. You can also use food to get their brain distracted to come back to you of saying, my mom needs something, but do not give the food at that moment. Because then you're again, rewarding the behavior.
Yeah.
So also too, you can make your dog turn with you and do a circle. So, and then as the level goes up, your correction needs to get a little bit more intense. But a lot of it too, people like yell at their dog, where your dog's respect, it's your energy. And it's how dominant your energy is. And that doesn't mean you physically need to touch your dog or whatever, but it's a solid correction, which is a tap and release. And then I'm very much relaxed and I'm trusting my dog to do what I want it to do. I'm not holding tight. I'm completely relaxed and I'm waiting for my dog to do it again.
It's seriously like so similar to just good parenting, because
Yes.
you are like giving them room to make mistakes.
Of course.
And if and when that happens, then there's like you've broken trust and now
Yes.
we have to have consequences or whatever. And then also just not letting you lose your cool and getting like so impassioned that you're yelling and whatever. Like
Doesn't work.
Yeah, you're the steady constant.
Yes. And one thing too, I think some dog owners may make is they put their dogs in timeouts. And once again, dogs have zero idea why they're hanging out in their crate.
Yeah.
No idea. They've not learned a thing.
Well, and also, I've also heard that not to do that in the crate because that's like their happy
Always,
place.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we've never grown up putting a dog like in a crate for a timeout per se.
Yeah.
What you have to do is the follow through. So if, for instance, what would be a good example? Maybe your dog's in the kitchen and stealing food off the countertop.
You've done that, yes.
Okay. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just so over this. You're going in a timeout, and the dog's like, how did I get in here?
Right.
So you have to, the dog again has to do his physical body has to move and his brain has to move himself. So you can't drag a dog out of that situation and say, you're in the kitchen, you're bothering me. You have to use your energy to get the dog to move out of the space himself. So at that point, I would get in front of my dog and I would claim the kitchen countertop as my own. And I would say, go. But you have to, the way you say it, you have to physically mean it on the inside with your energy.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we love our dogs so much, and I do too, that you're like, no,
Right.
don't do it. Don't do it. And your dog's like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So your dog will know when you're serious, but it's really from this internal, confident, calm, you have no other choice but to leave this kitchen right now.
Yeah.
And then once they move out of the space, you can tell them to sit down and just turn around and go back to work. If they take one step forward, then I would turn around and say, back. And I would make them move away from me. Because when dogs move away from you, that's a level of respect. So when dogs come into your space uninvited, that's actually a level of somewhat, it's not disrespectful, but they're kind of just dominating your space.
Sure.
So you kind of claim your space back, you claim the kitchen back. And you'd be surprised on how easy that is to do that when you're energetically really mean it. And your dog isn't sad. You're not hurting your dog's feelings, because you have to remember dogs have been bred for hundreds of years to work for people. They thrive to be told what to do. They're like, thank you for telling me what to do. I've been waiting for this for a long time. And they just get so excited. And then once they are sitting outside the kitchen and they sit there and eventually they'll probably just lay down. They're still part of the family. They're enjoying their time. Then I would give them a treat. Be like, good job.
Good job. Mm-hmm.
And then they'll learn that really quickly on just the boundaries. And, as we all have to work on our boundaries personally, you have to work on your boundaries with your dog too. It's like a really wonderful lesson that dogs teach you.
Well, and like you said, sometimes it can be so hard because their behaviors can be cute. So like, for instance,
Of course.
And I'll throw Chris under the bus again, but it's really all the retrievers that we've always grown up with. So
Sure.
our three, and then my parents, when somebody comes to the house or they come into, the house, they'll pick up a shoe and,
Oh, sure. They want to
yes.
show off the shoe.
Yes, which I would assume probably has to do with retrieving, and that's just
Yes.
kind of in their nature. And if they're not chewing on it, they're not damaging it. So we've always been like, oh, thank you for bringing me the shoe, which is probably not how we're supposed to respond, but they're so stinking cute.
Oh, they're so cute. I'd probably let them get away with that. I mean, they're just, they almost like they bring you a gift and they're so proud of it. They're like, I found this shoe for you.
Yeah.
You're like, thank you.
Yeah, we've been looking all
Yeah.
over for it.
I know, it's so cute.
So there's that one. And then my Steph's dog, Archie, likes to pull on sweatshirts and like pants.
Is this the German Shepherd?
No, this is the English cream.
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah, I mean, he does that too. Sometimes it's funny, dogs are such routine dogs, and after he's fed dinner, we always say he goes into shark mode, because out of nowhere, he all of a sudden wants to bite your pants. And I'm like, where'd this come from? And I remember like my parents were dog sitting him, and when I first got a French Bulldog, my dad's like, what are you going to do with that? Is what he said. And now he like loves the French Bulldog. But my parents were dog sitting him, and my mom called, and he's like, for some reason, like around 6 o'clock, Bacon starts biting our pants. I'm like, well, he kind of goes into shark mode, but they just kind of, that's his way of playing. And you have to remember, their mouths are their hands in a way. So that's how they wrestle. And that's where, you can use your hands as a great tool to train dogs too, because a mama dog will, they'll correct them with their mouth. So your hand can become somewhat like a mom dog mouth. So sometimes to get their attention, if you're playing with a toy and the dog won't let go of it, for instance, you can take your hand and put some pressure behind their back leg and their flank area and just squeeze it a little bit. And they'll be like this and say, drop it. So that's a way to get your dog to know that I want the toy back. And it's also important that they don't lunge for it again, right? So you're teaching your dog respect. So I now own this toy. So a lot of those patterns of you have it, now I'm claiming it back, are how dogs communicate with each other on who's the most dominant. So this becomes important in your relationship when you're out for walks. Your dog trusts you. So your dog doesn't feel like it has to take the lead in protecting the pack, that you're the pack leader. Therefore, your dog can go into relaxation follower mode. So some dogs like to be, he's a dominant, confident male, so he has zero aggression with him at all, because he's a very competent dog. So some dogs that are back of the pack dogs.
You're a confident guy.
He is. But some dogs are born middle of the pack or back of the pack. Right? So you have submissive dogs. Now, if you have a submissive dog with an owner that's not a pack leader, sometimes they don't feel secure. So they can become aggressive with their lack of confidence, because they're insecure, but they don't trust the other person on the end of the leash.
Sure.
So that's another thing to know when you're getting a puppy, is if you have a breeder that really understand, or even a litter of puppies at the Humane Society, if someone understands the puppy dynamics in that litter of which dog is the alpha dog, middle, back of the pack, you can make your decision wisely.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. That's also really important to know what dog you're getting, what puppy you're getting.
Yeah.
Front of the pack, middle of the pack, back of the pack.
Okay.
Be much different in how you
And
could approach training.
And if you have multiple dogs, I would assume that matters a lot too.
It does. I think that matters. Also, they advise people, and I do too, never get two puppies together, litter mates. They will bond to each other. They will never bond to you. So they will always be each other's first and foremost, and you may come in second someplace there. I'm sure someone will argue with me that that's not true, but they call it litter mate syndrome, and it becomes very challenging to train dogs that are, so people are like, oh, I'm going to get two sisters or brother and sister. Bad idea.
Yeah, in the same litter. Okay. You were talking about, obviously, how the dogs want to feel safe with their owners, and there's like a golden doodle in that other neighborhood we were walking to.
Oh, yeah.
And one time he was off leash, and he came and ran up to Fozzie and I, and was barking very aggressively. Fozzie was kind of like shell-shocked a little bit.
Sure.
And I was holding him back, and I was saying, go or whatever. That owner wasn't outside yet. And finally he came out and was just kind of standing there. I was like, could you get your dog? But now every time we go past the house, that dog's on a leash. But Fozzie like kind of creeps towards the house like he's scared. And so I've been wondering, like, how should I approach that when we walk past that house, so that I'm trying to lessen his anxiety, but I also know the dog's going to start barking, and then Fozzie's going to pull. Now I know what to do when he's pulling, but...
Does he pull away? He's trying to get away at that point?
Try to go towards the dog.
Oh, to go say hi?
Yeah.
Yes. So sometimes, majority of dogs that are coming up like aggressively like that, if you have that instant, this has happened to me too, or someone's dog's off leash and they come at you like 100 miles an hour. I put myself between my dog and that dog, my physical body, immediately, as fast as I can. So the dog, I always say, you're going to have to come through me to get to my dog. So I actually am going to slow that dog down, and I'll even tell that dog to get back. And because that's not the happy-go-lucky. If a dog comes up happy-go-lucky, again, with that slow tail wag, no problem.
Right.
But a dog's coming at you 100 miles an hour, guarding its territory, that kind of thing. In my personal experience, it's very unlikely a dog's gonna come after you, right? They're not, most dogs, unless they're highly trained, like guard dogs, are not going to do that. A doodle's probably not going to do that. But what it will do is stop when you step in front of your dog and say, get back.
Okay.
So you're kind of lessening getting that dog to slow down, and maybe then that dog will slow down and then probably circle and smell or whatever. And if it does, it's fine. But if it starts barking again, you can then step in and tell that dog to go away. So you can always be an advocate for your own dog if the other dog is not being attended to by its owner.
Yeah.
I think that's always smart. But yeah, the dogs will remember some of those experiences. I would keep repeating it. I mean, you could walk past a bunch of times and eventually it kind of desensitizes them to the other dog or whatnot. But yeah, it just takes one time for a dog to remember, like, oh, this dog almost tried to attack me. So
yeah, his little like slow crawl.
Yeah,
he's
so sweet. I know he is a big teddy bear for sure. He's the cutest. Yeah, so I'm always an advocate for putting myself in front of my dog, and then I have no problem telling someone else's dog to give that dog a correction too, because no one's there in that instance. So you want to just make sure both dogs are safe. I'm always like, no one wants a vet bill.
Right.
And you don't want a dog to need stitches or anything like that. So it's more important for you as the person to intervene. Then I see a lot of people get really scared and they freeze when interactions happen, like fights and stuff like that. They don't know what to do. So for me, to prevent something like that even happening, I will put myself there first, or even your foot, like putting your leg out, your foot out, all of that will block energetically the other dog from coming in at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, I don't even really know how I responded other than just like yelling no and keeping a tight grip on Fozzie. Yeah,
so you could have just stepped in front of Fozzie and then just focused on that dog.
Yeah. Because I'm sure he probably interpreted it as like, well, what am I doing wrong? Why am I getting
Because they got tight, right? So that makes him nervous too.
Yeah.
A lot of tight leashes and all this like pulling back can actually cause dogs to rise in their leash aggression too. Because they're like, why am I trapped? They don't like that feeling.
Sure. Okay.
But.
Okay. Well, if I can do that one over, I can't.
I know. But if you keep repeating it and like the dog's barking, then he'll get desensitized and he'll be like, whatever, this dog's not gonna.
Okay. I'm gonna keep doing that. So I've heard that if you want your dog to be calm when you come home, or when not when you come home, but when guests come to the house, you're supposed to come in calmly and, just as opposed to what I do, my husband does, and like everyone in our family does. When we come home, we're like, hi,
Yeah. There's levels to this. I guess, I think it depends on the excitement of your dog. So I have a friend of mine that has a lab. She's wonderful. And her dog is high level excitement. And so when people come to the door, the dog is really going wild, and they have little kids. And so it becomes kind of an issue. Yeah. And for those types of dogs, I am a firm believer that you should come in quiet yourself as much as you want to rile your dog up. He is a low energy dog, so even if I'm like, hey, he's like, what's up?
Yeah.
So that probably doesn't affect it. But if you have a dog that you're trying to calm down most of the time, and you're like, the dog's jumping and you're like, get down, and trying to do all this stuff, you should remain really calm when the dog comes in. One of the most wonderful things you could do is buy those raised nylon, they're not really beds, they're like they can be a bed, but they have 4 legs and they're raised off the ground probably about 3 inches, and they're made of like a tight nylon.
Yeah.
Put that in your house, and it's called what's called place training. So your dog, when you first have that, you take a treat and you say place, and your dog steps up on the thing and you give the dog a treat. And then you eventually step a couple feet back, you say get on your place, the dog stands on the place, and eventually that place becomes the spot where your dog is at when your family's eating dinner. And that is the spot where your dog is at when someone comes to the door. You automatically say get to your place. Just say place. Don't say get to your place. One word, place.
Wow.
And what you do is you work with your dog on saying training, and when they're on their place, their feet don't come off the place. So even when one foot comes down, so this takes work. You got to practice, because you'll say sit, and then eventually it stays longer, and then eventually it's 5 minutes, and then it's 10 minutes. Then it's a half hour and may expect you to sit on your place, but they'll sleep on it. And what the difference is with versus just a regular dog bed is that it's raised off the ground. So they consciously know they're stepping off of it, which means it's easier to train them to stay on it, because they know, like, stepping off, no, place, okay. And then when your dog is is trained on place training, your dog goes to the place when you have people come to the door, and the dog's not allowed to come off the place until they've calmed down. That could be 5 minutes, it could be half an hour.
Yeah.
They may finally lay down, and then all you go over there and say, okay. You don't raise your voice. You don't say, good job, good job. Right. You just say, okay. And then they come down and they get to go smell people. Because really what dogs want, they want the scent.
Yeah.
So that is a wonderful way if you have a dog that's really high level of excitement when they come in the door. I think it's cool. Really each depends on the dog. But yes, as a pack leader, when you notice the alpha wolf come into the pack, it's very calm, and all the other wolves are kind of licking and rather excited. But the main wolf, the alpha dog, is very calm and just stands there. It's kind of that same concept of you should come in pretty quietly. I did that all the time when he was a puppy. So I think it's helpful when they're puppies to stay really calm, because you're rewarding the calm, confident dog, not the hyper, out of control dog. So
that makes a lot of sense. And I think that the vast majority of us dog owners, we're naturally excited to see them when we come in the house, or our voices get high and we want to play, and
Yes. Another thing, it's also breed dependent too. I did a TV story on a doggy game called Earth Dog, and it's all for terrier breeds, basically. They say any breed can participate, but what they do is they have these pet rats, and they're literally people's pets, that they are desensitized rats when they're little to dogs barking and kids and all sorts of noises and such. And they put them in these plastic tubes, and they put them underneath in these tunnels underground. And then they're boxed in with wood, right? And the sport is to allow the terriers, which are traditional rodent hunters, to go in the tunnel to go find the rat. So the rat could care less. The rat's eating an apple, it's having a great time, but the dogs, this is their sport, and it's timed on how fast the dog can get through the tunnel to find the rat. And it's a maze, so they can go dead ends, so they have to use their nose, and then they're trained, the dogs are trained to have to bark for a certain amount of time at the rat, because that would alert, back in the olden days, that there was an actual rodent in the ground. But the terrier, what I learned at that TV shoot, are terriers are spicy breeds. Like, they are genetically spicy dogs. That's why you see the barking a lot with terriers, like, rah, 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 you know. Yeah. And that is genetically, that's in that breed. So you have to love them because they're so smart, and they're a spicy breed. And if that's your style, then that would be a wonderful dog for you. Yeah. And that's just, again, going back to knowing the breed that you're getting. But you know, some of it is breed dependent. It is the personality of the dog, and then of course you. So it's like this triangle of three things that really make the perfect relationship.
Yeah. Chris's middle dog we had when she was like 8 weeks old for a week, and that's her most chill dog now. Belle.
Yes.
So we always say she picked up on my energy.
She did, and Fozzie's in it. Oh, did you have Fozzie at the time?
That's a good question. I don't know if we. I
was like, maybe
we did. Maybe.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
we
she
did.
picked up on the energy here.
Yeah.
It was very zen here. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Belle is totally chill. She's so
she's
funny.
a derivation from the other two. So.
Yes. Yeah, her dogs are wonderful.
Yeah. We love them.
Yeah, they have really good energy. They have really high prey drive.
Yeah.
So she's had to tone that down a little bit, but that's the retriever for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they move a lot throughout the day. That's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know, it's awesome. Yeah, she's a very good dog mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I think you had talked about treats being used a few times, but are there times that treats shouldn't be used or that people are misusing them? I mean, I'm sure timing of a situation is important, but are there any times where you're like, oh, dog owners typically do this, I wouldn't recommend doing this?
I think food is a wonderful way to train a dog, and then also to get the attention of your dog, because they always want to use their nose first. So when you are versus English or their ears, right? Versus your mouth or your ears is using the nose first. So hence that's why, even nose work, I think one thing I will say in the wintertime here to give your dog a stimulus is to hide treats throughout your house and have them find it. Hide it under cushions, and they say like 5 minutes to 15 minutes of nose work for a dog is equivalent to an hour of exercise for a dog. So that's how important it is for your dog to sniff things and to find things. And so that's a fun game to play, if it's minus 30 and it's just too cold for either your dog or yourself, is to hide some treats around the house. But
it's adorable.
Yeah, and they love it, right?
Yeah.
So it gives them a game to do. And but one thing is not what you wouldn't want to do is if your dog is in a heightened state of a behavior that you don't want, is to give food at that time, including when your dog is nervous. So another mistake I feel some dog owners make, because we love our dogs so much, and a lot of times we think we're training our dog by how we would treat another person. So if someone is scared or anxious, we do a lot of it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, and you're petting, it's okay, oh, you want a treat, it's okay. And dogs that are in an anxious state, typically you sit very still and calm and don't talk to your dog and don't pet them at that moment and let them work through it by following your energy.
Interesting.
So when you pet,
it's okay,
and do all of that, you're actually saying, this is what all they hear is good girl, good boy. This is what I'm supposed to do. So a lot of times, even with puppy training where they're nervous about stuff, like maybe walking over a manhole or something that's wobbly, I don't use any English at all. I'm very quiet, and I'll ask that dog to come forward towards me, towards the object they're afraid of, and I'll put pressure on the leash with their collar and or the harness, but I pull forward, and as soon as they take one step in my direction I'm asking, I let go of the pressure, because that's all I need at that point. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to ask for 2 steps, and then I release pressure. So you can use food for that time, but I wouldn't give food in a state of fear, a state of anxiety, or a state of like kind of this pointed aggression where I'm at level 1. Because sometimes you'll see people move food, get their dog to walk past another dog without wanting to attack it, but the dog's still in this tense body, and they're giving the dog food at that time. And if they were to stop giving that food, the dog would turn around and still probably be aggressive.
Right.
So I think you are telling the dog that's kind of what you want it to do. So you can use food to get the brain to say, my mom needs me for something, or dad. But don't use the food at that point until they're in the calm state that you really want them in. So a lot of the follow through is important. So even having your dog sit, and it might be leash aggression, and you're having your dog sit, but the dog's still intensely staring like this. In your dog's mind, that dog's still, I'm like, I'm going to kill that dog. And they're giving it food because it sat. So that you have to completely follow through. I'd make the dog move and work with me and pay attention to me, sit. Even I'd wait 20 minutes. And it takes a lot of patience to be a good dog owner, because it's that follow through that matters. It's when you'll hear the dog exhale at times. They'll go, or they'll yawn, or even when the dog shakes, it's actually getting rid of all that energy, the pent up energy. And then they're just more relaxed. Then you give the treat.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And I think that a lot of us have got our dogs at a point in our lives where it wasn't necessarily the best time to get it. I know when we got Fozzie, we were more responsible at that time than, say, when we had our first Newfoundland in our 20s. But we also had 2 kids. We're also both working outside of the home. And so it would have been smart for me to move my schedule first before we were ready to bring a dog home. But yeah, I think it's just such a good reminder that it takes a lot of work to really effectively train them. And if you're not willing to put the work in, then you're probably going to have some behavioral issues on your hands, just like, I have had with Fozzie on walks. Sure.
It is. And none of us are perfect, right? There's not like a perfect way or wrong way, but the stronger the relationship you have with your dog, the more special it is, right? It's to see how they respond to you and how you move as a team together. And you just will enjoy the relationship so much more when you put work into it, like you would any relationship, if you think about it. If you don't put work into the relationship with your husband or wife, I mean, what's going to happen to it?
Right.
So it's no different, but it is one more thing that is on your to-do list when you decide to get a dog. So the dog isn't there to entertain kids. It's not there just to look cute on a sofa. You are adding multiple steps to your daily routine by choosing to have a dog in the house. But the amount of joy that dogs bring to a family and to you is incredible.
I know. So worth it.
Every day they make you laugh, they make you smile. They are the purest form of living in the present moment. They love unconditionally. And that's also what's so special with hunting dogs too. You have that bond with the dog out in the field. When you go hunting and there's dogs out there, they will typically only hunt for their owners. My sister will say, oh, take, Raya, have her go with you over in that field or whatever, just even 20 feet over. And, she'll just go back to hunting for my sister, which is funny. That's what they want to do no matter what, which is great. That's what she should do. But that's also really special. I think what people really love about having dogs work for them in the field, or I'm sure that's the same with canine police dogs or any, canine work too. That's that same type of bond you can have. But
okay, so other than your our shared affinity for dogs, what are you working on now, and what are you up to? I know you write.
I do.
Yeah. So
I am. I've been just still really busy with Minnesota Bound, and many people don't know that we film our show a year in advance, and that all of us produce and write all of our own stories. So if I'm not filming, I am writing, and so I will film in chunks at a time. So we film by season. So coming up, once the snow flies, I'll be filming our winter episodes for 2025 that will air in 2025. And I'm writing all the episodes that I filmed last spring for this coming, they'll air this spring, if that makes sense. So what I filmed last spring will air this spring, but I'm going to write all of that right now. Cool. So it's always kind of this cycle that keeps on going. So I've been really just busy with that, and Dan and I, my boyfriend and I, have a house in Austin, Texas, so I spend part of my time in Austin. I've been
so fun
dabbling in the outdoor community there, just getting started. I took an archery lesson for the first time, so I did not grow up archery hunting at all, or even shooting archery.
This is new for you.
It is new for me.
Cool.
And I'm really enjoying it. The amount of, they talk about the state of flow that happens when you go into the outdoors, or if you're into sports. I'm sure lots of things, golf, painting, art, all of it. is really intense when you're shooting archery. There's just this, the breathing that happens, the drawing of the bow, the concentration on really trying to get the bullseye. And it's just this, it's so slow too. It's so different than sporting clays where it's loud and you're kind of getting punched a lot with the sporting clays.
Yeah.
I was really enjoying archery. So
That's cool.
I plan on taking some more lessons, and I would love to go hunting, archery hunting at some point, but I'm definitely not ready for that yet. And then also I'm going to get back into doing some barrel racing. So I was a barrel racer in high school, and there's so many ranches where you can take some lessons. It's been a few years since I've really have been serious about it. So of course I want to hire a coach. I'm a big advocate of hiring experts to help.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
Yep.
Fishing guides, hunting guides, archery coaches, sporting clays coaches. I mean, anything where you can learn from someone who's an expert in the area, I think I agree. Is a wonderful thing to do. It's a great way to get into the outdoors. There is there's a learning curve to things in the outdoors, but also just the entry point can be difficult for some people because there's just public land seems to become less and less. We have a lot of public land here in the state of Minnesota, which is wonderful, but it's not the case everywhere.
Right.
And just how to do it, where to do it, when. So hiring guys is like so helpful. But I'm going to do the same thing with getting back into horses. I'm going to hire a barrel racing coach and
that's awesome.
See if I can still do the sport this many years later. But it's what's interesting is you're flying so fast on a horse, spinning around barrels in this tight cloverleaf pattern. And I was watching the National Finals Rodeo, and I think there was a woman in there. She was like 65 or maybe 70, competing at the highest level of the sport.
No way.
I'm like, that's impressive.
Holy cow.
That's super impressive.
65, 70 female.
Yes.
Yeah. That's impressive.
Really. And even to make it to the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas, which is you have to qualify.
Cream of the crop.
Yes.
Yeah.
The best of the best. And she was in there competing. I was like, that's really, really cool. I love that there's not an age limit to that sport when you think it would just be for people in their 20s.
There would be. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the reasons why I love like just social media and the rise of everything internet and connecting is because I've witnessed so many people doing things later on in life that you would think like, oh, you started strength training at like 60 or 65, what? Like train with Joan, or just, people picking up different hobbies. And not saying this woman was late to it, but for people who want to get like into the outdoors more and want to try hunting and trap shooting and things like that, it's, anytime.
Anytime is a good time. And there's no amount of participation in the sport to qualify you as being a hunter or an angler or someone who enjoys the sport. I think you have a skewed perception because on social media you see people who are in the hunting world and who have a lot huge followings. I mean, they're very intense about being out there. They're out there in very remote places. They're hunting 3 to 4 months out of the year. You're like, well, I could never do that.
Right.
But you can do 1 weekend, out of the entire year and still participate and have a good time and learn. And there are so many places in Minnesota that offer a lot of free classes, including the Minnesota DNR is a wonderful place to get started. They have Becoming an Outdoor Woman program through the DNR, which they have mentorship courses, they have online courses, they have a Learn to Hunt program, and even Three Rivers Park District has a ton of programs for kids to learn how to go fishing or to hunt. So there's so many places to have entry to it. And then there's also people that are willing to be mentors, of course, if you reach out and you may know someone. But anybody can do it. And to see the amount of women participating from where it was even, I would say 10 to 15 years ago, because I've been in the TV business now for 20 years and it's incredible. Yeah. I mean, it's not, when I first started, I always thought it was strange that people would say, how can you be in the fashion business, which I was, which is my college degree, and I would produce runway shows, and I was a fashion spokesperson for TV, and I did all those things, and I loved it. But then they would say, how can you be the fashion person and this outdoor person at the same time? Like, you can't be that. Yeah. And I always thought that was so weird. I was like, it's just how I grew up. Like, my mom was like the city fashionista girl, and my dad was like this outdoor person. I was like, why can't someone go from New York City to New York Fashion Week and then go pheasant hunting the week after? Like that. For sure. And we're so different now. Like, people don't even think like that anymore, which is so great to see and to hear, but also to see the amount of women. It's incredible, the amount of women participating in outdoor recreation now and doing wild trips that far extend even my comfort zone of where people decide where women are going hunting. And you know, I've interviewed some incredible women that have done some incredible things, including going hunting alone in like Kazakhstan. Or I'm going to interview this woman, Emily Ford. She was a solo backpacker, and then she decided to hike the Ice Age Trail with borrowing someone's husky, because she didn't want to do it alone, because she's going in the winter. Oh my gosh. And she's now going to race in the Iditarod in Alaska. And like, how cool. That's wild. Yeah. Like, I admire these people, and there are so many women doing so many incredible things, and it's just fun to see how much it's grown all these years. And also, you know, you talk about the weight training too, like how much that has crossed over into the outdoor world is strength training and being fit. Yeah. And being in the outdoors. Because it's no longer like, let's sit around and drink beers. And there is an element of being physically fit and participating in the outdoors, and then eating wild game as a healthy source of protein. And that whole circle has really grown too, which is really great to see. Yeah, yeah. I think it's a move back to like the basics, it feels like. Just like connecting with nature, feeding your body with nutritious foods, overall wellness. And that's so exciting because, with the last, I don't know, since the 50s when everything got into creature comforts, we've gotten away from that farm to table. I was just learning about this and how women were really sold that being a stay-at-home mom or housewife like kind of lost its luster, and so you're too busy to cook, and like cooking for your family became like, passe, like who has time for that, and here are some TV dinners or whatever. And that seemed to last for, that was like the 80s, the 90s, and I think everyone's like, okay, well, that's not healthy, and that was a misstep. And now let's go back, and it's cool to see all of that change so much. It is, it is. I have to say that I think even the farm to table movement and the chef-driven foods that really started to gain momentum opened the door for people to understand hunting better, because for a lot of years people had a really hard time with people hunting and not understanding that you're going out to get a food source, and when you go to the grocery store you're technically hiring a hitman to get your food for you. And having that disconnect, and there was a lot of letters and things sent out and hate on social media regarding hunting. And when people finally started to get curious about where their food came from, and then you start to see on the menus on restaurants, well, this came from this ranch, and this chicken was from here, and it really started to open the eyes for a better understanding of that hunting is part of the circle, and that you are part of the circle. And interesting. And you are not dismissed from the circle either if you choose to be a vegetarian or vegan, unfortunately. Like, that doesn't dismiss you from actually taking an animal's life, because agriculture, monocrop agriculture, kills a lot of animals. And how I always find it fascinating how we have, as humans, we have a certain set of love for an animal based off of its size. So the field mouse, that an egg gets, billions of animals are killed by monocrop agriculture all the time. That's part of farming. That's going to happen. Field mice, ground nests from birds, and no one thinks of that, but you take the animal of an elk and people are upset. So it's like based off of the size, which I think is kind of a fascinating way to, that we as humans do that.
Yeah, it's
and
very true.
We're all guilty of that, right?
Yeah.
Like and even when you are hunting, there's still remorse there when you are hunting. I have moments each time where I'm like, you have a moment of quietness. It's not, you're not out there like cheering, high-fiving.
Right. Wiping the blood on your...
Yeah, it's like, you have to face death. That's part of it. It also, I think, gives you a greater appreciation of food. But I do, where we have come just within the past 10 years of understanding hunting as a food source, and that it's free range, it's organic, there's no antibiotics. It is a very green way of harvesting your food. You're actually taking pressure off agricultural farmers from harvesting your own food.
Right.
Our farmers today are pressured a lot to get food, the amount of food that's needed for the world too. People don't really have that understanding as much. Some do, of course, but I think all of that is, we're all just kind of going back to, I don't know if we're going back to our natural state of being a little bit more, which is needed.
It does seem that way. I love.
And people having a greater understanding of nature and how it just awakens your soul again. And I am a big advocate when I do some public speaking and things on teaching what I have learned from the outdoors and all of the life lessons you can take away from just spending time outdoors, and how it makes you so resilient to life's ups and downs. Because when you step into nature, it's brutal. It's not a fair environment.
Yeah.
When you see how the natural world works, and we are part of that natural world, it's not that everybody's, I'm a big advocate for kindness and respect and all those things, but nature isn't necessarily that way.
Right.
So when you step into, and our world isn't that way. And when you're in the outdoors and you learn how to be resilient, you learn to have patience, you learn humility, you learn how to deal with failure, you learn how to things are just not going to go your way.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's not going to go your way. And what are you going to do about it? And how do you deal with weather that's horrible and you're cold? And being the joy of curiosity and the joy of like learning how the natural environment works, and how everything has a reason that it's there, from the butterflies migrating and all the things that nature does. That's like so amazing to me. It makes you so resilient to handle just life that you become a happier person. And there are books written on this, that it is in your genetics and DNA to have to work hard.
Yeah.
Your ancestors had to work hard. Nothing was just so convenient all the time. And they say that farm kids are some of the happiest kids out there because they're working. And like, it's in your genetics to have to work and to struggle to have the happiness. And everybody's trying to find the happiness.
Right. Right.
And the happiness is in the hard work. And I think you get that when you're like weight training, if you you accomplish something. All of those places you can find those things that create happiness, but a lot of times it takes work to get there. And I think spending time in the outdoors just teaches you all that on its own.
That's so
You don't
cool.
need a
It's so
book.
true.
You just have to go outside.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of adversity you overcome when you're in different types of environments, when you're whether you're hunting, fishing, or you're just battling the elements sometimes. Yeah, it's so true. It's hard, and you have to figure it out. You have to get through it.
And they say a lot of times if you get into situations where, the outdoors is a wild place and can be dangerous at times, depending on what you're doing, they say the biggest threat to you is not the grizzly bear or the animal that
Timberwolf
might come get you, the wolf. It's yourself. Which is probably true, because you'll go back and you look at, that one mistake that I made, or I was just really pushing this trip when I knew the weather was going to be bad, and I shouldn't have done that. But those are lessons you learn, and there is a scale where happiness is in the hard work until maybe you're pushing yourself to where you're in situations where it might be dangerous. then of course the happiness is going away.
Right.
Then you're not so happy at that point.
Within boundaries.
Yeah, within boundaries. But that's what I find so fascinating about the outdoors, is that element of teachings that can come from that.
Yeah. And so important for kids. You know, it's one of the things that Gary and I have talked about, because we grew up on the lake and a lot of woods. And so we were in the woods all the time, building forts, whatever. We were learning things on the water that were having to overcome adversity in those ways. But, you know, we live in a neighborhood. It's a wonderful neighborhood. It's a amazing village, and they have we have very little access to woods right around us. So just trying to get them into nature more when, like, this day and age, their activities are, you know, 5 or 6 nights a week. Like it's so different. And so it really has to be like a conscious choice and a priority in order to foster that for your kids, which we definitely need to improve upon. But yeah,
and I get it. Everybody has very busy schedules, and it's amazing to me that sports schedule. I think when we were growing up, a lot of times just like go play in the backyard, and you might have a sports thing here or there, but it seems now like it is a stacked schedule for kids. And I'm sure the structure of that, the kids probably thrive in a lot of structure, but it's just a whole different childhood.
It is. There's not enough time for boredom, and
when that would make sense.
Yeah, when there is boredom, then they have all these technology distractions, and so you have to trying to force them to be bored and be creative. You know, that's important. But I think that was one of the things, that silver linings in 2020, is like when all of the activities slowed down.
So true.
Yeah, we saw a lot of just like, I mean, that year I homeschooled the kids, Whitney wrote a book. Like the creativity that we have when we slow down, we just forget because we're, you know,
running all the time.
Yeah.
It's the joy of stillness. And I think one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is to be able to sit in stillness with just your thoughts.
Yeah.
And when you go out, like I used mention, out in the outdoors, you know, it's pretty quiet. There's something really special if you can get into an outdoor space before the sun rises, and you have an opportunity to see how the wild world wakes up. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's quiet, and then all of a sudden you hear one bird who's just going to kick off the morning, and you hear all the squirrel climbing down the tree, and he's jumping around this crunchy leaves. He's getting his morning started, and everybody just kind of wakes up together, and you're like, this is actually really incredible, and it's so quiet. And yeah, it's to be able to sit with your thoughts is a really important skill to have. I think it is a great way to understand how to get rid of anxiety, that's for sure. Keeps us as a human being instead of a human doing, which a lot of us get too busy in that space. Yes.
Doing.
So true. So true.
Well, I'm so excited for people to listen to this, and I guarantee there's going to be like so many clips about just the especially the dog training pieces that I know so many people, so many dog owners are just gonna bomb onto.
And it's a personal passion. I am not a professional dog trainer by any means, but I feel I've been doing it
but
my own stuff my own long time. But
and we just walking around outside and showing just how your energy, and like you said, it is the cool, calm, confident, like that you have to show your dog, and then they kind of respond to it. And I'm like, oh dang, look at how quickly
I think too, it's also trusting your dog. Like in my soul, I almost am looking at my dog that I trust you to do the right thing. And it's weird to say that, but that's how I keep a very relaxed leash all the time. I'm also very fast if someone's gonna dart at a quick correction. So it's speed of the correction. You cannot correct late. That's one other important thing. If, like, your dog, for instance, has an accident in the house and you didn't see it right in the middle of it happening, you're too late. Do not give a correction. If you're, like, people will also, and I'm not saying that, I have seen this happen, where you're taking your dog from being snarly at the end of the leash and you're choosing to wait to bring him over here to give a correction a minute later your dog at that point has no idea why it's getting corrected. You have to be willing to give a quick correction right in the middle as fast as it's happening in front of other people and not care what other people are going to think of you.
Right.
You're not giving a correction to be abusive, and you're not actually abusive. You're just giving a quick no, and it's okay to say no to your dog in front of other people.
Right.
And, you know, there are limits to, you don't overcorrect either.
Right.
By any means. So you have to have your own patience, and if your dog's not getting it, you can circle your dog, you can start over. If they're not getting it right at that moment, try it again next time. You don't want to shut your dog down by any means. Like, that's not the point. You want to have the relationship where your dog's like, oh, I understand what she wants. Not, your dog's not doing this. Like, that's not really the correction you want. I mean, at some point your dog's be like, okay, my mom's serious, or my, you know, whatever. But that's also the quickness of being ready to give a correction, but also then being immediately right after that relaxed, and also not hanging on to frustration. I'm not frustrated after my dog makes a mistake and I'm like, I'm so mad at him. I'm just, you know, I'm actually very relaxed.
That energy
oh,
too.
100%.
Yeah.
Because then I'm back to relax, and I'm actually already back to, now I expect you to do, I'm trusting you to do the right thing again.
Well, and it's so important that you said that you have to react quickly too, because I think a lot of us, when we're walking our dogs, at least I can be guilty of it, is I can be distracted. I could be talking to somebody, or somebody calls, or I might even be looking at something on my phone and not pay attention. And so I'm sure that opens the doors for all kinds of chaos.
Totally does.
Yeah.
And then also you're not working as a pack together.
Yeah.
So I like to be really present with my dog, and you'll enjoy the walk more because you're appreciating how well behaved he's being, and then you're able to correct the things that he's not. Same with dog parks. I'm not a fan of dog parks, I'll say that right now. I think it's, a dog trainer told me this once, is that your dog wants to be with its pack, which is you. So some dogs are very social and playful, which is fine. Some dogs, you're just throwing them into this pack that's not their pack, and they're like, I don't know if I even want to be here. And some dogs in those dog parks are there every day at the exact same time, and they start to believe it's their territory, obviously, because they're there same time, same place, same dogs. New dog comes in, now you get a pack that's ganging up on a different dog. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong at the dog park. And also you have a lot of people that are like chit-chatting, hanging out, not paying any attention to what their dog's doing.
Right.
So at times when I have gone into dog parks with him or other dogs, I am watching my dog's behavior and other people's dogs' behavior the whole time. And I'm just seeing, is it playful play? Are things getting a little too heated? They're kind of playing, but playing can turn into fight real quick. So you can kind of see it escalate, and you just have to be an advocate for both dogs. You know, no dog is a bad dog, in my opinion, ever. Every dog can, even if it has incredible behavioral issues, is a wonderful dog. It needs better guidance. So, you know, you want to be advocates. So everybody's there to play, and if behavior is getting escalated, you're stepping in, moving on to a different dog if you need to, you know, or removing your dog out of the dog park. If you see your dog stressed out, be your dog's best advocate and leave, not so you can hang out with your friends.
Right.
So I think that's really important. But a lot of dog trainers are no to dog parks, and I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. I've had a few circumstances where I was like, no, and it was exactly what you said. The owner of a dog that this dog seemed aggressive, like I didn't trust it. They were just kind of off doing their own thing and not paying attention. I thought, well, this doesn't seem like a safe environment. And then there was just a lot of people weren't picking up after their dogs, you know, not picking up poop.
Crazy.
Yeah, I'm like, gross.
Yeah. I know. I never understood that, because like, do you want to step in it at some point? Like, do you want your dog's feet in it by some point by accident?
Yeah.
I'm always carrying doggy bags. I mean, that's part of the dog ownership is you gotta clean up the dog poo. I mean, it's like not too hard, but there's you do see a lot of behavioral issues in dog parks, but again, some dogs are very social and love to play. I mean, I love when you know the dog, you know the dog's owners, and you want to meet up someplace, and it's kind of more of a controlled environment. It's great. Like, dogs love to play with each other. There's no doubt about it. But it's, you just have to understand, too, that if your dog's going in there too hot and dominant, that you probably need to tone your own dog down a little bit.
Right. What does Bacon think of other dogs?
He's really indifferent.
Is he?
Yeah, he is not a fighter at all. He will not. He's had dogs try to fight him, and he just looks at him like, he's like, bro.
Yeah. Chill.
What are you doing?
Chill, bro.
No, he's wonderful. But bulldogs, you know, they call them tenacious for a reason. So they have a tendency to approach other dogs kind of puffed up.
Yeah.
And then they move really quick. And because they don't have tails, or dogs with dock tails, now dogs communicate with that tail a lot. Some dogs don't like that because they don't know what he means, because he has no tail. Is it stiff?
Yeah.
Is it low, happy-go-lucky? That's how dogs communicate with their tails all the time.
Yeah.
And so I've seen dogs go after him. I think it's because of the lack of the tail. And he's also he's confident. He's not a fighter, but he's like...
Yeah. So they're trying to, like, see if...
Yeah. And there's times where one time we actually met up with a Newfie. He didn't know we were walking on the street, and he had, I don't know, short man syndrome at that moment, and he decided he was going to get real tall, and he took his front paws and whipped them to the side of the Newfie's face like this. And he was standing up on his hind legs, like looking directly in his face. I was like, what's happening? I was like, no. Oh my gosh. I was like, that's trying to start a fight if I've ever seen one. He was like, whoosh.
What did Newfie do?
Just was like this for a second. But I'm fast.
Yeah.
So I corrected him immediately, because he was saying in his body language, he's like, you ready to rumble or what? And I was like, no, we're not doing that today.
Oh,
but that was funny. He tried to get as tall as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a good boy.
Well, the next thing I'm going to have to work on with Fozzie is he's been barking now for I don't know how long.
He's wearing himself out.
I know he is, but like, okay, so he doesn't ever really like to be separated.
Sure. But
probably, obviously, more so that Bacon's here.
Yeah.
So what do I do with that?
A separation anxiety is that can be a tough one to work through, but what they recommend is first exercise your dog as much as you can before you're going to leave. So again, that's another step, right? Because your dog, an exhausted dog is a happy dog. But what you can also do is, with crate training, that's helpful, is to do short spurts. So when they're little, to put them in the crate and have them, sit down or relax. And when they're puppies, I like to feed them in the crate. Everything is in the crate. Food's in the crate, little naps are in the crate. And then eventually that becomes their bedroom. It's like their little den. And it's the happy place. There's never a punishment that happens in the crate. It's their space. And what you can do is do short, like 1 minute in the crate with the door locked. And sometimes, of course, puppies can cry a lot. So what you can do is try to have them sit in the crate by using food to kind of bring the food back, so they kind of automatically sit, give a treat. But if they try to take a paw out, I kind of close the door. You have to be, and puppies need a lot of grace. They can't remember stuff. So you're not there to give like, no, they don't. Close the door. No, you can say no, but they're not going to know what you mean. Until eventually they'll understand, like, oh, I'm supposed to kind of stay in here for a minute, but you're right there. Right. And then you see the puppy, sleeping. And a lot of times they'll say, bring the crate into the TV room where you are. Don't put it in the laundry room. Have it with you, but have them in there for maybe a minute. And then it's 5 minutes, and then they get to come out. So there's never this like, I'm shutting you in here, I'm in a hurry, and I'm leaving. That is anxiety for a dog. Like, all of a sudden my pack's leaving and I'm left here alone. So that's where that begins, is that puppy phase. You're in a hurry, kids get in the car, you throw the dog in the crate, slam it, and then they're like, bah! So that, again, takes time, but you can get your dog very accustomed to not knowing if it's 5 minutes or if it's an hour. And then their crate becomes their happy place, and they don't have this sense of, I'm being left behind. So it takes work. Some dogs, the dog anxiety, but a lot of that you can work on with, and also like having more of the structure of even working on sitting in that room, and I'm going to go in the other room for a minute, then I call you, I sit, because it becomes this, like, I can leave you and you don't need to freak out because I'm giving you a job. Your job is to sit here.
Yeah.
So,
Like little jobs.
Yep. Or even when you're eating dinner, place train them on that place. Then the place gets moved into another room. He's got to go sit on his place and you go have dinner over here. So you create space for moments and then they get invited back into the circle. So it's never a slamming the door.
Right.
I'm running away the other direction.
Yeah.
But it can be a tough one.
Yeah. It's so much of the energy for sure. And it's probably set from the point that they're puppies. And
calm energy around that crate. Calm energy. Get in your crate, place. Right. Even my training, I do a lot of just very quiet, sit, no. You don't raise your voice. You really don't need to. But they do say, like, if your dog's at the level 9 or 10, you do sometimes have to get loud,
right?
With your energy too, so they can hear you. Because I feel like they get into the red zone. They're like, I hear nothing at that point.
Yes.
So it depends on the energy level of your dog. But sometimes, like breaking up snarls and stuff that happen, you can just yell, "Hey!" like that, loud, to scare them is enough to. Sometimes, not all the time.
Right.
But sometimes I'll do that if something starts, I can see something starting, I'll use my voice, and then they're like, well, and then, okay, move along.
Okay.
So that don't be afraid to get loud. Sometimes I've had to do that in places and people are like, but I'm like, listen, like I just, you don't want to have something bad happen to either dog. That'd be terrible. So
exactly. Okay, I have one more question about that, and then I want to respect your time, but what do you think of the beepers? So they don't always shock, but they would...
The tone?
Yeah, the correction tone.
Yeah, the e-collar training is a very effective tool if it's used correctly. So a lot of hunting dogs have e-collars because they can be life-saving at some point. If your dog is on a scent and starts chasing a deer or something and it's running towards a busy road. Sure. A lot of times when dogs are in like high, they're in the zone of hunting and they're not coming back to your voice when you're 100 yards away. So those instances are really important. And many times the tone on it and the vibrate is enough. The problem, I think, is the timing on it and also how many times you're using it. So, people can overuse the tone and the vibrate, and all of a sudden the dog's like, whatever. So there's that, but then also the timing can be too late, or you can use it too much. So each dog is so different on the level of correction it should have based on its personality. So I've chatted with the golden retriever trainers that train golden retrievers specifically. They said they're technically much softer of a dog than a lab would be. So you have to be a little bit more careful on how you train them or give a correction because they'll remember it longer. They'll shut down. You don't want your dog to shut down. So they can easily be overused. However, they are a really useful tool if your dog understands what the tone and the vibrate means. Meaning, that means I need to come back to my mom or dad, or that means I need to pay attention, and usually it's to return to you, the owner is basically what it's used for. So I think that's really important, but also know your dog's sensitivity to correction. Like Bacon is actually sensitive to correction. He requires a lot of patience. For me, bulldogs are very stubborn. I have told many people that bulldogs were not bred to work for people. I'm convinced they've been bred to work for themselves and themselves only. They are stubborn. Like they have no desire to please you. And I feel like that's one of the reasons they make them so funny. Yeah. Because they're so in their own lane and they just want to do their own thing. But their recall's horrible. His idea, they'll just put the brakes on a walk all the time. Like, nope, I decided I don't want to go. And he won't. He's like, no. And so I could correct him and say, I could give him a harder correction here. And then he actually is sensitive to that. So what I do is I find a different route, and I'm more patient, and I'll move his body, and it's a really calm correction. So he is not a dog that would ever do well with an e-collar. Okay. So it depends, I think, on the dog's personality.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. We've used it for Fozzie when we've been up at my parents', just so that he can go. He likes to go to the bathroom in the woods, so he goes off ways, and then we just do the beep, and he comes
back. Perfect. Yeah, that's all you need. That's what's like so great about those collars, is it gives you so much more freedom for your dog. Right. And I think too, it's important to have them wear that collar in all the a lot, so it becomes, I get to eat my food with it. I sleep with it. I mean, I know can irritate skin, so you gotta be careful. But it's not. You're not only putting the collar on when you're going to do like obedience work, and all of a sudden I don't like the collar. So the collar needs to be like happy times and all sorts of stuff. Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, so you're introducing it as like a lovely tool to be able to give the dog more freedom and know that your dog's going to be safe. Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, I think the only way we had been using it so far was on walks, or really when he goes to the bathroom. So maybe we should incorporate it in like some just fun play, so he doesn't think it's like, oh, this is good. Yeah, and it depends on like, how does he react when you put it on? Is he fine? He's fine. Then he probably doesn't care. Every dog is just like humans. Each dog's personality is so different. Some labs have such high drive. You can give them some corrections, and they won't even. They're like, whatever. And then and some dogs bounce back really fast from corrections. Some dogs need a softer correction. So you really have to understand your dog and then adjust to that. And I said, dogs are always teach you something about yourself. Each one of them that comes into your life. They mirror your energy immensely. If you have anxiety, your dog's probably going to have some anxiety. Right. It's fascinating that way. But if you look at it, they will teach you something about you that you probably need to learn. Yeah, they're kind of mirrors for energetically, for sure. Yes. 100%. Yeah, they trust your energy. They know when to not trust energy. They know when energy is, bad energy is coming in your house. That dog knows it. Right. It's fascinating. Right. But yeah, they're just the gift that. Maybe that's why Fozzie gets so excited when he sees dogs, because I'm such a big dog person. Yes, exactly. He just picks up on that energy. He wants to play. I know, and he's so big. He doesn't even understand his own size. I know, he doesn't. He's so cute. Well, gosh, I can't thank you enough for hanging out and sharing bacon with us. I don't think we can all see him anymore, but he's so nummy. He's totally out for a nap. I forgot I launched this product. I meant to share that with you. Yes. I'll make this really fast. This is a fruits and greens superfood blend, because I know you're a health food fanatic. Wait a second. I am. I didn't know you did this. Yes. This is amazing. I did. Okay. So I feel like we're on hour 5. I don't know how many hours we're going. It goes by fast for me. Sorry. I recently launched this fruits and greens product. It's called Wildly Living, the Daily Wild. And it is a superfood blend of real fruits and vegetables. So there's no artificial flavorings in here, food colorings. Amazing. There's no sugar other than what the fruit provides, which is not very much. I think it's like 2 grams of sugar in here per scoop. And it's the antioxidant power of 30 servings of fruits and vegetables per scoop. And the reason I love this product in particular is when I would go to these remote destinations, including small towns in America, it was really hard to get healthy food. Yeah. And I've been a nutrition and health fanatic for a long time, and I found myself just packing all my own food and this fruits and greens supplement. So I would mix this with protein powder in the morning, or if I was going to be hiking for a long time, I'd have some oatmeal, protein powder, some sort of fat source, and a fruits and greens. And I would be like living off of this for a week at a time until I could get back to normal grocery store, what have you. Right. Because a lot of times you're living in small hotel rooms that don't have refrigerators either. Sure. So you're doing the best you can, or if you're camping. And so I decided to private label the product and just bring it to the public, and so other people can enjoy it. And the flavor on this does not taste like grassy earth type of fruits and greens powder that you normally taste. It has a really great profile, and there's 3 different flavors, and it's like my Kool-Aid stand, I call it, my lemonade stand. It's like, you know, the product is such a high quality product that the cost on it's really high, so I'm like maybe making an extra gas tank worth of money on this thing, but I just love sharing it with other people, and it's been fun to bring it to others. And so I've been busy working on that, and if I had more time, I'd probably finesse it even more, but it's kind of...
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I just was talking to someone the other day about how we could get 1 cup of spinach would give us all of our nutrients we needed from that cup of spinach however many years ago, and now we'd need like 8 cups. So even when you do have access to a grocery store that has healthier foods, it just, our soil is so different.
I know.
So that's why these are all the more important.
I know. They are. And it's really wild when you can mix this with like yogurt or whatever you want, but like Greek yogurt, no sugar. But when you take this with just water on an empty stomach, you get this weird little like buzz, and there's no caffeine in here. It's kind of weird. You're like,
your body's like, oh,
thank you. Yes. And it has vegetable powder and turmeric and all sorts of stuff. So it's just a fun little product, and I've always been passionate about health, so I thought I would just share it with others. And you're right about the soil erosion and all of that. It's a lot of work to do in the food.
I know.
In the food world, that's for sure.
Things are going to change, though. So I'm
excited.
Yeah.
I know. It'll be fun to watch to see what happens in the next few years here.
For sure. Well, thank you so much. I can't wait to check this out because I know I am behind on a lot of my things. I was taking something for a while, but I don't know.
It happens.
Yeah.
I even
fall out of things.
Yes, you totally do. You'll kind of get into a pattern, and then you don't reorder or whatever. And I get it. And then you might come back to it again. I think all of us are. Yeah. Do those kinds of patterns, but I would be happy to send you a bottle too. I'd love for you to try it.
Yeah,
it's wildlyliving.com is the website for the product, and
perfect. And people can connect with you where best?
Probably on either my website, which is lauraschara.com, if you want to email me, or my social pages, if you want to follow along in any of the ventures, are just at Laura Schara. That's LauraSchara, and that's both Facebook and Instagram. I'm not on TikTok.
I've been dipping my toes a little bit.
Have you?
Really, just to share things from the podcast. But
yes.
Otherwise, no.
I know the social media. I do my best to post as much as I can. I feel it's so consuming that I try to not be doom scrolling as much as I can. So I post when I can, and I try to do the best I can with the social media stuff.
Well, you get to disconnect in nature a lot, so that's
I try to.
Yeah,
I try to. I find myself searching for more and more remote destinations too when I look for trips to go on, including like 4th of July, where Dan and I will try to do some sort of adventure trip, and I find myself saying, like, who's going to have the least amount of people? It's fascinating.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But it's been fun. Well, thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much.
It's been really
fun.
Thanks,
Bacon.
say thank you.
A sweet boy.